Hello everyone, welcome to Data Avenue. Today I'm going to talk about Agile and Scrum methodology. So here is agenda. So I'm going to talk about what is Agile, what is Scrum, what are the different Agile terminologies, how the team structure would look like, Scrum Framework, and let's talk about story points and estimation tips. So before getting into what is Agile, let's talk why Agile. So I'm considering here a waterfall model, a traditional methodology that's being used in IT industry that starts with analysis, requirements, design, development, and until the deployment. In this particular model, the huge number of requirements are being considered for a one single deliverable. The duration is longer to see the final result, just in case any changes in the design and development, so that would impact the timeline. So to avoid this, instead of taking the huge number of requirements at one shot and deliver it after such a long time, so we are going to use the agile. It's going to work in terms of incremental model. So here is a definition of agile. The agile methodology is a way to manage a project by breaking it up into several phases. In the waterfall, we have the huge number of requirements. Here it's going to be in the incremental manner. And it's a good practice that helps a continuous iteration of development and testing in the SDLC process. And it ensures teams to deliver the values at faster rate. So these are the advantage of Agile. If you see what are the different Agile methodologies being used in addition to Scrum, there is a extreme programming, there is a Kanban, Lean, Scrum, and Crystal. So as highlighted here, in this video, I'm going to talk about only the Scrum. So what is Scrum? So Scrum is a subset of Agile. So I would say it's a lightweight framework of Agile. It's an excellent model for dealing with the complex projects and capacity to adopt the changes and feedback in case of any changes in the requirements. So usually the development cycle starts with 1 to 4 weeks. So in this Scrum, the more focus on people, deliverable, and the communication. So teams can deliver deliverables very efficiently and they have the greater visibility. So before getting into the framework, let's understand the lot of terminologies associated with the Scrum. What is Scrum Team? So Scrum Team, it comes with one Scrum Master who run the show, one product owner, and group of developers and testers. Sprint. Sprint is the time frame usually starts from 1 to 4 weeks of time. It's called sprint for the deliverables. User story. So here the short requirements or the product features to develop or test. That is called the user story. So each and every story have the estimation. So here in the Agile and Scrum, they call it as in the points, the unit of measurement. That's an estimation to develop or test the particular requirement of the story. So the stories, we have to convert the hours into points. The points would look like the Fibonacci sequence 1, 2, 5, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, so on. Right? So in the later slides, I given few examples how to estimate it and why the Fibonacci series is being used. Next is task. The tasks are used to break down user stories even further. The tasks are the smallest unit used in the Scrum. So usually the task could be completed by the one person within a day of time. What is epic? The epic is large stories called epic. So whenever we say epic, that needs to be break into multiple stories. So we have seen task. What is subtask? When we have a user story that needs a multiple tasks that have the multiple associated tasks, that's called a subtask. So if I get a requirement of developing something, for an example, I need to do the data analysis, I need to do the test data preparation or unit testing, code review and migration. So these are the few subtasks. Then spike. The spike is something to be investigated or you want to do some more analysis. There is no QA or any deliverable out of it, but there is a conclusion, there is arrival. When we do the design, come up with the multiple approach and make a conclusion, that's called spike. Acceptance criteria. So each and every story have the acceptance criteria. It's nothing but the test case when end user look into the story, whether it has been completed or tested or not. So this is what it's going to, the acceptance criteria is being used. It's defined the boundaries of a story and are used to confirm when the story is completed and working as expected. The example in your story, in addition to description, the user cannot submit a form without completing all the mandatory fields. So this is one of the acceptance criteria. It's a good example. Product backlog. There are two backlogs are there. One is product backlog and sprint backlog. So what is product backlog? So this is the list of stories for a team that is derived from the roadmap. So for example, you have the team A and team B. So the product backlog have the list of stories that would be divided between the two teams, right? Different functionalities as a that comes into one single product. A refinement, a continuous process of creating the stories or updating the backlogs called the refinement, right? What is sprint backlog? The set of items or stories so that is being considered for this particular sprint, what needs to be delivered. Grooming. So grooming session is a open discussion between development team and the product owner where the stories are being discussed in order to explain to everyone to gain a better understanding. So these are the points would be considered. So they'll review the backlog and let's prioritizing the backlog. So which one needs to be considered for current sprint and next sprint, and then get the clarifications, raise questions, and get it done, and then estimate a story with how many points it's going to take, either one, two, three, five, like that. Sprint planning. So once the grooming is done, the sprint planning is the starting point of a scrum. So the purpose of sprint planning is to define what can be delivered in the sprint, how it can be achieved. Usually, it's a very important meeting where determine the team's capacity, the team members' availability, who's going on leave, who's available for this particular sprint, how many hours they can work, and then assign the respective stories to them, and everyone has to agree on the items to move into the next sprint. Daily Scrum. It's a brief meeting, let's say 15 to 20 minutes of time in the morning for the team to synchronize the activities, status, report any issues, blockers, any identify risk, and create a plan for next 24 hours. Sprint demo. It's the end of the sprint period where developers and testers have to showcase their work, providing an example, show the test results, and get it approved. It's a good chance for the team to celebrate their accomplishments, and get the feedbacks from the product owner. And sprint retro, it's an opportunity for the Scrum team to share the feedback and create a plan for an improvements. So it usually happens during the end of the sprint where everyone shared the feedback, what went wrong, what needs to be improved, and then usually they take like the 3 points from the list of feedback that would be considered for the future sprints to see any further improvements. Let's talk about Scrum Team. So here if you see a business owner who provides business use cases to Scrum Team for the development, a product owner who takes care of those use cases and converting into their stories for the development and testing, Scrum Master who runs this entire show, arranging everyday Scrum calls, managing the Jira board, assigning the stories, and until the demonstration. So we have the development team, respective testing team, business analyst, and architect. So let's talk about the Scrum Framework. So as I said, the Scrum Master who runs the entire show. So we have the brief meeting called Daily Scrum that happens on every day. So the sprint in the duration of 1 to 4 weeks, it's an iterative model. So we have a development team, the product owner who responsible for creating the product backlog. From there, we need to get the respective stories and put it in the sprint backlog. That is where the sprint planning starts. Take the stories, assign to the development team, run the daily scrum call in the 1 to 4 weeks of sprint, deliver it, and either we have to deliver or you need to carry forward to the next sprint. So end of the sprint, we'll have the review, the demo to get it approved, and move to deployment, and then the retro where you can share your feedback. Story points. So each and every story have the estimation. In Agile, the estimation needs to be in points. For our understanding, it would be in the t-shirt sizes, small, medium, large, XL. The small is the 1 to 3 points is considered as a small, 5 to 8 points is a medium size story, 13 to 20 points is the large size, then more than, it's all considered as the XL. So usually, how do you convert the number of hours into story points? Right? This is how I go with it. One story point is equal to 1 to 8 hours of time. If you think the story or requirement that needs like 2 days of effort, so when you divide by 8, the 16 hours divided by 8, that's just 2 story points. That is how the calculation. And it varies team to team. When you get into the team, first we have to make sure like it's being considered as 4 hours or 8 hours, and then we have to do the calculation. If you look at the story points, it's in the Fibonacci sequence, starts from 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. The interesting point is the addition of the two consecutive numbers would be the value. If you see 2 plus 3, 5, 5 plus 3, 8, 8 plus 5, 13, 13 plus 8, 21. Why Fibonacci sequence? It's a very important question to understand. In the story points, let's talk about like a small story or medium story. It's easy to estimate how many hours it's going to take. So I can assign like 3 points or 2 points. But let's talk about the larger one, the 13 point or 20 point. it's difficult to estimate it. So it's always like we should have the 30 to 60% of the effort variance need to consider. So if you consider the 30% to 60% of the effort variance, it needs some bandwidth, the room for adopting the changes. So that particular bandwidth will get it in the Fibonacci sequence. As an example, you are trying to estimate a story that is in the 5 and give the 30 to 60% of the effort variance that comes with the 3. So 3 plus 5, that is a 8. So that's why the Fibonacci sequences gives the space. So that's why it's being used for the story estimation. Let's talk about the story points estimation. When do I do the estimation? So usually it happens in the grooming session. How? Sometimes some of the teams they use a few tools called pointing poker tool, the snapshot I provided. The Scrum Master gives you the link where you can open it, and for each and every story, as soon as it groomed or looking into the description, everyone has to vote with the points. Let's say I put 3, someone put 5, then there is a difference. Then Scrum Master would ask the justification where you have to provide why did you give 3, why did you give 5. We have to explain, and then we have to re-vote it, and in order to everyone come to the same page, and then that particular point would be assigned to that particular story. So if not this pointing poker tool, in other way, the chat window or the communicator, they ask you to give some numbers. The good practice is put the story number. Here I provide an example, data 4324, and then give the 3 points. So this is how the story points are being estimated. Then how do you arrive at the points? It's understand the description and the acceptance criteria of the story, and based on our previous experience and discussion with your peers, that is how we have to arrive at the story points. So in this video we spoke about an introduction. So thanks for your time. If you have any questions, please comment it in this video, and I'm planning to publish one more video as a part 2. So that's going to have an example with the Jira tool. Yeah. Thanks for your time. Thank you so much.